tired of going out to your ATM machine and touching a kiosk, an interactive screen that's got other people's germs? I don't know about you, but I am. But I've got a solution for you and for all the companies out there that have those interactive screens. Hi, my name is Roberta Perry, and I am the co-host of Invitation to Tomorrow Today, where we showcase product and services that answer problems in today's environment. We were so excited when we found this particular product called ULTRALEAP because it easily can convert any interactive screen on your kiosk into a safe, touch-free, touchless screen. I know you're going to want to know more about it, so sit back and listen to Gupta, who is the product manager for this touch-free ULTRALEAP product. And if you're like I am, I cannot wait until I can have a touch-free environment out there on every interactive screen that I personally have to be in contact with. So sit back and enjoy Mr. Gupta's presentation from ULTRALEAP.
Our program introduces new technologies and solutions to issues that we are all currently facing and some that we are probably going to be about to face. I'm your co-host. My name's Norma Lynn Cutler, and I can't wait for you to meet our presenter and hear what he's got to say. It'll blow your socks off. But first, I want you to promise that you're going to wait to the end of this program to hear about next month's amazing program, because the company is doing something phenomenal, and I know you'll want to know. Now it's my honor to introduce my co-host, the revered, the estimable Roberta Perry, founder of Roberta Perry and Associates, a business development catalyst firm. And she was recently designated a master of the themed entertainment universe by the TEA. This is the American equivalent of the OBE. We shall herefore call her Dame Roberta Perry. Take it away, Roberta.
Thank you, Norma Lynn. Now I know you're in public relations because I can always count on you for an amazing introduction. Thank you. And welcome again to everyone for joining us today. Because as Norma Lynn said, oh my goodness, we cannot wait to introduce you to our guest speaker and their company today. As Norma Lynn mentioned, the ITTT, which we're now known as, which is the Invitation to Tomorrow Today, is a showcase that we put on monthly to introduce to you products and services that do solve problems and are market ready today. The ITT Showcase is a collaboration of Norma Lynn Cutler, who you've met with Cutler Enterprises, Heidi Hirsch with Reveal Studios Architects, and of course, the amazing Susie Oglahara, who is our advisor from Panasonic Hollywood Labs, which is the research and development portal for Panasonic. Our Zoom format, as FYI, and once again, if you do not want to be recorded, please shut off your video. But our format includes a 15-minute presentation by our guest speaker, followed by questions and answers. Now, the team has put together our own questions, but I will blend those with questions that you put into the chat box as you're going through his presentation, or as questions come to you, please put it in chat, and then I'll pick those up to ask him when we get into the Q&A segment. Today, we are so excited to be showcasing ULTRALEAP, touch-free, adding touchless gesture control to interactive screens. Now, what does that really mean? Well, when Susie first brought ULTRALEAP to our attention, the team, Heidi, Norma Lynn, and I said, whoa, this is awesome. Maybe going forward, we'll never have to touch another kiosk ever again, because ULTRALEAP solves that problem. So that's why we are showcasing ULTRALEAP today and their touch-free or touchless gesture controls. Our guest speaker is from ULTRALEAP, who heads up the product department. I should say he's the product director for the touchless product, Saurabh Gupta. So Saurabh, take it away, and I'll see all of you back here in 15 minutes for the questions and answers. Saurabh, all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, and great introduction. It's nice to meet you all. Very relevant topic. I'm going to do a few logistical pieces of launching the Cursory Zoom screen share. So bear with me a second, and then we can get started. Sorry, as always, there we go. All right, Cursory, everyone can see the screen okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, as I was introduced, my name is Saurabh Gupta, and I'm the Director of Product at ULTRALEAP. And at ULTRALEAP, our mission is to blend the physical and the digital spaces and define the next sort of user interaction or interface for tomorrow, and how human-machine interfaces can evolve in the future. What I'm going to talk about today is all about a very relevant topic. Ted, you talked about it in your introduction. It's about touchless interaction and going beyond the touchscreen, and how our solution or gesture control or contactless solutions can restore consumer trust by enhancing self-service with a new way of interaction. So a couple of things that I'm going to be talking about today in my presentation is where do we see the challenge in when it comes to public interfaces? Where is that value that we can ascribe to touchless interaction when we're talking about contactless? And then eventually I want to talk in more detail about what we have done about it. So to frame the problem and provide the right context, we all know, and we've interacted with these interfaces, before the pandemic hit, literally, multiple times, as we move around in physical spaces, public interfaces and self-service solutions have proliferated the market, and for very good reason. These solutions provide convenience and operational flexibility to businesses and operators. Touchscreens have been the dominant technology powering these solutions. And there've always been some concerns with germ transmission through touchscreens and these surfaces, but these concerns have now been amplified because of the current environment that we are in, which where what we are seeing is leading to a shift in consumer perceptions around touchscreen solutions. Now, based on some surveys that we've done, we polled consumers to test the hypothesis that our consumer preference is really shifting. And we launched a survey that we did across the United States and the UK, where we polled almost 500 people, consumers. And when we asked them to rate one of their biggest concerns with touchscreens, that hygiene aspect was the #1 concern. And that seems to sort of mirror what we are seeing from the industry also, where a lot of operators and brands are asking us for solutions that alleviate some of these concerns that consumers are expressing. But from a business standpoint, for businesses, there are lots of touchscreen solutions or kiosks out there. So what should businesses do? Our hypothesis is that in a post-COVID world, businesses would need to adapt, right? Customers are looking to be reassured that safety and health are the #1 priority for brands. And in times of crisis, and this is a really important point, customers' interaction with a company can trigger an immediate and lingering effect on his or her trust and loyalty that they associate with the brand. Therefore, we think that this sort of pull from the market and pull from the consumer will enable touchless solutions like gesture control, voice, mobile integration, and there's a huge spectrum of these touchless solutions that will lead to a higher number of adoption of some new technologies that really define the next generation of human-machine interfaces, especially in the public domain. Now, where to validate this hypothesis, I referenced the survey earlier, and I'll mention a few brief data points from it, is when we polled consumers and asked them about their preferences on their preferred method of interaction when it comes to sort of operation in the post-pandemic world, consumers with a really strong preference stated that they are highly likely to use gesture-based technology in the future. And when we asked them about gesture-based as opposed to or as compared to other types of solutions in the quick service restaurant business or context, most consumers define their preference to be higher for gesture-based systems as opposed to other forms of interaction or interaction methods. Therefore, we posit that touchless interaction is safe, convenient, and reassuring for consumers. Consumers can use these self-service kiosks that are available to them and interact with digital content on screen with the confidence that they don't have to touch surfaces, addressing the current health concern and also removing the need for additional cleanliness solutions that can potentially impact business operations. And a really interesting data point from McKinsey and Company in a recent study that they did where they concluded that if part of the customer journey is existing or must exist in the physical channel or physical space, brands and operators need to really think about introducing contactless options. And in the United States alone, there has been a 20% increase in preference for contactless operations. You know, Ted talked about contactless payments. That's another area of a huge growth and explosion in growth. And contactless options across numerous industries. And we are starting to see a lot of that in some of the engagements that we are involved in. So from a consumer perspective, there is a strong preference. There is indication in the market from businesses that they are looking to adapt to these shift in perceptions. So it starts to validate the hypothesis that we've all been operating on, is that tomorrow's interactive solutions might look different from what they look like today. So now, going forward, based on sort of these validation and touch points, data points, we've built a solution that we think can address some of the concerns that have been exposed. And so we introduced this application earlier this year. It's called Touch Free, and it's an application that is primarily developed for retrofit opportunities because we wanted to ensure that people who have existing infrastructure can still transition to a contactless system without a lot of technology, but also infrastructural burden. And so what you're seeing here is it's an application that is running on an existing touchscreen-based solution and using a camera, it's a stereo IR camera, you can translate hand interaction or hand motion in front of the camera into user input. So items are selected similar to the way you would touch a touchscreen, moving your finger towards the screen, but you're doing that in midair and you're achieving the same results. So disaggregating the touch aspect from the interaction. So how does it work? So 4 simple steps, assuming you already have a kiosk or a kiosk already exists, which is touchscreen based. All somebody who wants to adopt this needs to do is to add the ULTRALEAP camera and add our software with a single USB cable, and you're good to go. Your current UI can be translated or transformed into a touchless experience just by doing these simple 4 steps. And what I want to point out here is that our solution overlays on top of the existing user interface or application, thus removing the need for any UI customizations that perhaps a new type of technology might require. So that's the key here, to make the transition as easy and as frictionless as possible. Now, since there is a camera involved, we get asked this question a lot, is where do I place the camera? Our recommended position for camera placement is towards the top of the screen, angled down towards the user. However, there are other positions supported too. We can certainly help anyone who's looking for a solution to define what the optimal position is. But this is, we recommend top mounted facing angle towards the user, so that the user's hand can be seen fully in the view of the camera. And as they're making the selection, the level of fidelity is high. Just want to point out from a technology standpoint, what we really do is we map 26 points on each hand. And so tips of the finger, the joints, the metacarpal, the wrist joints. And what that does is that allows our machine learning algorithm, which is based on hand models from 6 billion hands, to translate hand motion into, or gestures into, input mechanism with a really high level of fidelity and accuracy, and with very low latency. So that's how the camera works. The software is what powers the analysis behind the input that the camera is seeing. Now, one of the critical pieces is really nailing what the user interaction needs to be. And we've done a lot of work in this area because we see this as critical to our success, or the success of this technology in general. The impediment that usually happens when new technologies come to the forefront is, how much do you need to teach a user to learn something? So learn behavior versus behaviors that you need to learn to be successful. In our testing, what we've found is that the interaction style, which users are already familiar with, which is as you move your finger towards the screen to touch a button, just mimicking that interaction is the sort of shortest path to getting users comfortable with a gesture-based system. And so we developed this interaction style that we call air push, which is what we've seen best for pushing on-screen buttons and simple interactive elements. It feels natural and it's easy to learn for customers because it's familiar, as I said. It's also been validated by in-depth user testing that we have done, but also as an output of pilots, large-scale public pilots that we're involved in at the moment. In the future, we'd want to support additional gestures as the adoption for gesture-based technology increases, but where we see air push being a central sort of easy gesture to activate the gesture-based systems today. Another key element to making gesture-based systems or transition to a new technology is, how do you teach consumers? How do you inform consumers what they need to do? And there are 4 basic things that we have uncovered. The primary is some sort of an animation that you're seeing on the left-hand side of this graphic is a video on the kiosk. And by the way, this animation is embedded into our application that allows people to just use the animation. So you don't have to create any new graphics, but a prominent animation or video on kiosk at the starting screen. So as a consumer or a user walks up to the screen, they can look at this graphic and know exactly what they need to do just in a few seconds. And you need to teach this behavior and make it simple for anyone to grasp. And you literally have a couple of seconds to inform users on what they need to do before they, user frustration sets in. So we've tested this a lot. I'll give you a data point. We ran a really large pilot in the Pacific Northwest at an airport setting where we did A/B testing on user adoption rates with or without this graphic. And by simply adding this graphic, we saw a jump of almost 35% week over week in gesture adoption rates, which means people get it. Once you show them what they need to do in a simple, engaging way, it starts to become learned behavior. Now, a couple of other things that help is if you have some static signage attached to the kiosk that reinforces the message, that's useful, although not required. Footprints on the floor to indicate where somebody needs or user needs to stand for optimal interaction also help. And nearby signage, that also can be useful in reinforcing the message. I want to talk very briefly about technical details. We can work on small screens to large screens. We've done testing on up to 40-inch screens in portrait orientation, but we can go as high as 55 inches. All you need is, as I said before, our camera and some software. The media player that is powering some of these graphics or the user interface. We've done testing with the Intel class type of processors, but also other less intensive processors also work. We can help guide you in the right direction should that be a concern. On the UI side, what we have seen is most UIs can work right out of the box, but there are some recommendations that we can provide to help define the user elements for better usability should there be a need. And these are all captured in the design guidelines that are available, and we can make those available for somebody who's interested. Adopting new technology is difficult, and there is a transition point. And what we have seen, customers asking us or people interested in technology asking us to help them with is, perhaps helping them with user interface design and optimizations. We've done some work on this to provide the right level of guidance. Technical support, again, where should you mount the camera? What should be the settings? Should there be any settings changes on the application? Could certainly help in that regard. Usability and adoption guidance. As I said before, we've done a lot of work in this area. We are happy to share best practices to speed user adoption. What the call to interact or the graphic that you saw earlier is a generic graphic that is included into in our application, but we understand that certain operators and brands might like to customize that animation to reflect their brand guidelines. We can certainly help in that area as well to make something custom. And finally, most of the pilots and new technologies are evaluated on sort of adoption rates and how consumers are reacting to this new technology introduction. We have an extensive research team. We can certainly help assist with planning and conducting user studies and trials that develop and define the ROI for sort of this transition. So these are sort of the 4 areas that we have seen customers ask us for help, and we're happy to share those insights and our learnings that can enable people to get a better understanding and lead to adoption. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in my presentation. Hopefully it gave you a flavor, but where I leave you with is, sorry, I forgot to mention, we have resources available in terms of hardware and software guidelines, and both on the technical side, but also on the usability side. So these are available on ULTRALEAP's website. But as I was saying before, I want to leave you with a video that explains everything that I said in a sort of a 2-minute sort of loop. So I hope you enjoy this video, and be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Let's look at the video. Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Wow, what a presentation. For our question and answer segment, I'm going to start with some of the questions that came in via the chat, starting with one from I believe this came in from you, Walter. Is there a new installation option for customers that don't have existing infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you, Walter. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this application could run on top of any UI that you want to run. In addition, we have tools that enable you to leverage hand tracking and build custom applications with. The goal with this product was to enable retrofit type opportunities, but there's no reason for it to not be able to be used on any new UI design as well. It could work seamlessly, yes.
Good. All right, great. Thanks. Please describe again the technology used by the camera to detect a person's movements. Is it laser-based or based on electromagnetic frequency?
Yeah, it's a dual infrared camera. So what it's doing is it's capturing users' hands or images of users' hands at a really low sort of resolution level. And once we grab the frames of pictures of users' hands, then we translate that into hand skeletons by mapping 26 points per hand. And that is the feed into the machine learning algorithm that processes the hand input. And this is all being done locally. Nothing is stored. Everything is done in real time and is local to the host machine.
Yeah, great. I was describing your technology the other day to someone, and I actually used air push, and they went, oh, and the visual was perfect, that air push. And saying that, though, we have a question that I think is interesting from Dennis Ham. Is the system's sensitivity adversely affected when the user has heavy winter gloves on, i.e. New York?
Yeah. It's a really valid question, and we get that a lot. As I said before, our machine learning algorithms are based off of almost 6 billion hand models. So, and we are continuing to improve the input data set that allows us to detect different hand sizes, different conditions, lighting conditions, and so on. So there is sometimes a challenge, but our tracking stack or software stack is getting better at getting better resolution on some of these corner cases.
Good. There are a follow-up to that. There are a few of us on this call that might be working on a Hollywood project where we're going to have the digital signage and the window. So do you yet know if this is going to be able to work through a window? For those of us who are designers on the call and have windows we have to put up with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general answer is yes, it should work, because it depends on the proximity. There are a few technical details that we should talk about. A couple of things that we should keep in mind is what's sort of the distance between the sensor and the glass. Is it leading to some sort of reflection that inhibits the camera to actually see where the hands are? So a couple of those nuances aside, it should work just fine. We've been doing some other projects where this has come up, so it's on our radar, and think we can work with whoever is interested to fine tune.
Excellent, because I know Ravi is very interested in that, who's on the call today, because he's going to be charged with installing all of that. All right, another question following up with these wonderful hands of ours. How do you handle the extra hands waving around like children running around with their parents, or me, who's probably Italian? How do you handle that?
So right now we are we detect a pair of hands. It's a single user interface or single user interaction interface. And what we do is we basically, for every type of hand that's in front, we detect a left and a right hand, and then we filter out the rest. So from a noise component perspective, once a dominant hand position or hand is detected based on the proximity to the sensor, And that pair is what drives the interface without and filters out the sort of the extra hands around. And once a set of hands is detected, then that's tracked. And if you're gesticulating with your hands more or less, that doesn't matter.
Okay,
the sensor
great.
will be able to pick up a
Sensor
set of
pick
hands.
that up. Excellent, excellent. Ted asked the question, is the camera side USB connection exposed or concealed, and is it secured?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is exposed, but in installations, what we've seen is people usually build an enclosure in which they place the sensor, and that enclosure has the ability to sort of hide the cable head coming in.
Okay, good. That's very, very good to know. Let's get into some of the nitty-gritty of the process. I know Susie was interested in what will the implementation of the journey look like? How does a small shop implement this type of technology? So what do they do? How do they do it? How do they start this whole process?
Yeah, so it's really simple. They can purchase the solution from us. What they'll get with that is a ULTRALEAP camera and our software. And what they'll do is follow the instructions and install the camera based on the recommended camera position. We can help with the enclosures and defining enclosures that we've learned about over the past 6 months, and help with that integration aspect should that be needed. Otherwise, it's just a simple sort of connection, installing hardware, and if you've got an existing user interface, you're set. There's not much more that you need to do.
Well, we're always worried about what happens if. So thank you for that answer. But what happens if so let me make sure I understand the process. I go to your website, I order, and how much is this going to cost me? Let's start with that question.
Sure. Yeah, so at really low volumes or single unit volumes, it's about $229.
And what does that include?
It includes the hardware and software and the license to be able to use touch-free application.
Okay, so it includes the sensor and your software.
Correct.
And which includes the license. And is that a one-time charge?
That's a one-time charge.
Okay. Now, does the software live on the cloud? Do we do our content updates from the cloud, or how do I update the content on my kiosk?
Yeah, it's all local. So from an update standpoint, our application is sitting on top of your user interface application. So if you update your user interface application, you will not need to update our software unless we provide an update to the software, which can happen locally. We are not connected to the cloud for privacy reasons.
All right. So so there's no analytics. Or are there analytics, or do I have to handle my analytics myself on my CMS?
Yeah, so from our perspective, for the purposes of this application, since it's an overlay on an existing user interface, our hypothesis and we've worked with a lot of customers on this, is the analytics lives in the UI layer, which is controlled by the customer. And so analytics are available in our general tracking software stack, but not in this application since it's running on top of a user interface application. So generally how you would do analytics is your user interface application would be gathering that level of analytics or analytical data. We are just the input mechanism to convert it from touchscreen to non-touch.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for separating that out for me. Ari, did you have your hand up, or you were just waving at me?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I think it's kind of interesting, your design. Obviously, you guys created the software as well, and the camera. But why not create something where people could go up to a kiosk and then use their smartphone to mimic what's on the screen and then touch their own phone as opposed to touching through the air?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, look, Ari, I think there'll be tons of options from a contactless standpoint perspective. Mobile integration is certainly another option.
Right.
There are a few constraints when you talk about mobile integration, right? So you walk up to a kiosk, you snap a code, then you're restricted to this form factor. So now you're using that as a controller. So now you have two interfaces to look at and coordinate as opposed to one interface.
Right.
I'm not suggesting that that's not a good alternative. All I'm saying is that there are multiple options.
Right.
Where what we are trying to do is we are saying that, look, there is already an infrastructure out there of existing kiosks. People are used to the form factor and the way of interaction. All we are trying to do is to be able to leverage that same infrastructure, make it turnkey or easy for that to be transitioned into a non-touch interface without disaggregating the user from that experience and not breaking the user journey.
Right. Well, the next step is to take away the screen completely, and all you're looking at is just the hologram of the images. I mean, it's
your
pretty
avatar,
much what it's going to be. Yeah. I
mean,
it's
it's just for that avatar. All right.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
got that avatar in there. Now that I can change my clothes and change my look with an avatar, now I'll be back. Saurabh, Walter asked a fun question because I know Susie was involved, Panasonic was involved with putting in the McDonald's kiosk.
Yeah.
So Walter wanted to know if you'd reached out to a company in Phoenix that owns all the McDonald's kiosks.
Well, I don't know how much I can say without an NDA. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I was just asking because I know those people, so I live here in Phoenix. That's why I'm always trying to help, man.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I appreciate it. We should.
There's a lot. I even know guys that did called Go Charge, do giant charging stations that are like 6 foot tall around for major advertisers. But it seems like you're kind of a directory only, or can you do it from an advertise from one advertiser in front? You can gesture with that also.
Let me understand the question. So, are you saying it only one-sided or two-sided interaction?
No, saying on the screen itself, say it's one ad versus a directory, wayfinding, etc. Are you able to also interact with that?
Yeah, I mean, so think of this just as an input interface. So wherever there is interactive elements on screen, those can be transitioned to contactless.
Yeah, I came from digital signage, so yeah, I'm fully aware.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Walter, for that recommendation. And then I'll make sure that I put you and Michael Loudermuck together. And speaking of that, Saurabh, as we kind of start winding this up, how do you want, my understanding is that one of two ways. We can either have them reach out to your website, or you can contact one of us who invited you to the showcase today, and we can make a personal introduction. So is there another way to do that, or are you in agreement with that, Saurabh?
Absolute agreement. Whoever invited you to this showcase, please reach out to them and they'll connect the dots, and be happy to connect through that channel.
Yeah, we would be more than happy to make an introduction to Saurabh and to Michael for any of you on the call. Saying that, before I turn it back to Norma Lynn, any final thoughts, Saurabh, for our guests today?
No, I mean, I think this was a great opportunity for me and for Michael to showcase what we've been working on, and really nice to meet you all. And yeah, look forward to connecting through Norma Lynn and Heidi and Roberta.
Great. You know what? I have one, after your final thought, of course, I have one more question that came in that I forgot to ask. So what's the turnaround time? Once I order, what's our turnaround time? Does it come in from, go ahead.
So our sensors are available at through distribution. They can be at your location next day, and software is easily distributable. So 1 day turnaround time, I guess.
All right, that's good to know. Now we can contact you either through the website or through one of us making an introduction. Well, again, Saurabh and Michael, it's just great to have you with us today with ULTRALEAP. You have fans here. We probably are going to be super fans, especially if we get this started in Hollywood. Walter, just so you know, we're looking at it for Hollywood. So we're really, really excited at the technology that you developed for all of us that never want to touch a kiosk ever again. So thank you for that air push. Thank you so much. Norma Lynn, back to you.
Thank you so much. And Sanjay, I have to say, Mr. Gupta, there aren't very many men in my life who have promised me instant gratification. But now that I know I can get a sensor and download the software, I am one happy girl. Sorry, did I offend anybody? I hope so. Anyway, for those of you who would like to share this program with other people, either in your company or other companies, we have recorded this, as we've said a couple of times, and we will be able to send it to you after it's been converted and so on. So ask whoever invited you to send you the recording, if that would be of use to you or of help.
And Norma Lynn, just a question, can they find that recording on our website? And you want to share what our website?
Ultimately that, yes. But if the human connection is important to you, as the person who invited you, either way, you will have access to it. And as for next month, well, we hope you all have wonderful holidays, but January 6th, put it on your calendar, because we've got a barn burner for that. Well, it's not a barn burner, but it's a germ burner. We are going to have a presentation from a new company called Plexus that has got another way to use UVC to kill germs. And it's a 5-minute solution, speaking of very quick satisfaction, but how it works and everything will be revealed January 6th at Invitation to Tomorrow Today. So watch your email. We'll be sending it out to everybody who participated here. And thank you so much for being with us, and hope you've enjoyed it and learned something.
And thank you, ULTRALEAP. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.